You were driving down the street?
I was walking down the street.
Walking?
Yeah.
What street?
Little Santa Monica.
Walking to or from your car?
From a restaurant.
To your car?
Actually, I think I was walking to another store.
And were you and Nicole having a meal at this restaurant together?
No.
What was the time frame?
Oh, I don't know. Oh, maybe 84.
And Nicole came driving by?
Yeah.
And started throwing pictures?
I mean, like Frisbee throwing these pictures out of the car.
What kind of pictures?
Pictures that she had framed of us and stuff.
Do you know what the cause of this conflict was?
I was walking out of the restaurant with a guy named Randy England, who I can't recall, but I think at the time was one of Denise's friends. And as we were walking out of the restaurant, I can't think of her name, but Elaine Young's daughter was walking down, and we were talking as we walked out, and Nicole drove by and just started throwing pictures. Elaine Young's a lady who sold me my house. And
Rockingham.
Rockingham. And we weren't with these people. We were walking to another store, and I don't know what Nicole thought, but she Frisbeed those pictures at us, and she said something very unpleasant to the girl.
What'd she say?
You have to ask the girl that.
Do you remember?
I don't remember. I read it somewhere since when I was in jail. I read it because I had forgotten the incident, and I read it when I was.
What was it that you read?
I don't know. It was just something that I read when I was.
You don't recall, is that right?
I don't recall.
Okay. Did you talk to Nicole after this incident to find out what it was all about?
I tried to.
And what did she say?
She didn't. That was the incident. That was the time she moved out and went to my friends, and I proposed to her the next day.
Did Nicole...
That's why I remember that portion of it.
Do you know how it was that Nicole had framed the pictures in her car?
Yeah, she was having pictures framed. I guess she was picking them up from the framer.
Was she moving out? Is that why she had pictures in the car?
No, she was just framing pictures of ours. In our home, our home was like a photo album. Nicole was big on pictures and frames, and every wall in our house had pictures and frames, and we were constantly traveling and doing things, and she was constantly taking pictures and constantly framing pictures.
Were there any other incidents involving her throwing pictures?
Not that I recall. She knocked a picture over once. She knocked a couple of pictures over once in '93, but she didn't break them or anything.
This is at Gretna Green?
No, this is at my home in Rockingham.
What was the date of this incident, Mr. Simpson?
I would say April of '90, April.
And what was the cause of this problem?
It was, she wanted us to get back together. I was reluctant. I'd taken a trip with her so we can get away, at my mother's advice, to find out why she wanted to get back together. I spent a few days with her. I came back, and my kids were at my house swimming, and she came by and wanted to know why Paula's pictures were still there. And I said, because Paula's my girlfriend. And she said, well, that wasn't going to work. And she slapped the picture and left. But she called and apologized the next day.
Was this before you and she had made the agreement under certain ground rules to reconcile?
Before I laid the ground rules and agreed to try it for a year, this was about a month, I would say, before that.
You say you laid them down.
Yes.
Isn't it true that you wanted to get back with her?
No.
As much as she with you?
No.
She was insistent?
Very insistent.
And you relented?
No. By May, I knew I loved her. I didn't know if I was in love with her. I knew I loved the time that we spent with our kids. And when they followed us down to Cabo that trip, the group of people I was staying with left, and Nicole and the kids asked me could I stay, and I stayed a few extra days, and I truly enjoyed the time that I spent. Nicole and I was very loving in that time, and it was during that time and that was right around Mother's Day, that I told her that I would try it.
So your view of this reconciliation is that you took her back, not that she took you back. Is that right?
I don't think anybody
It's not
took
a view.
anybody back.
Yeah, I don't think it's a view either. I don't think anybody argues, or anybody would argue that Nicole was very insistent and to get back together. And I told her no the first 2 or 3 times, but she wouldn't take no for an answer.
Now, you said you loved her, but you didn't know if you were in love with her.
Yes.
During that following year, or the year that ensued, did you ever come to the realization that you were in love with her?
Once I came to, it was almost a year. It was either the end of March or the first day or so of April. I was surprised that I was at that point finally amenable to them moving back in, and it was the first time that I honestly felt that, in my heart anyway, that maybe this would work. And and I called Lou Brown and Judy Brown and told them.
First time since your divorce that you felt that way?
No, the first 3 months of my divorce, yes. First time since my divorce, for sure, yes.
And first time since Nicole started to pursue you to reconcile that you felt that way, right?
Well, she pursued me for 2.5 months before I relented. When I say 2.5 months, and I shouldn't explain this, but when I say 2.5 months, previous to that, she had been sending me tapes and cupcakes and stuff. But from the day she showed up at my house with letters and tapes and talking to me about getting back together, from that day to the time that I said okay, was about 2.5 months.
And how long was she sending messages through the children and cupcakes and things like that before she showed up with the letters and the tapes?
It started in late February.
Of 1993?
Yes.
So you'd only been officially divorced 5 or 6 months, right?
Officially divorced, yes.
Yeah.
But we had gone on with our lives a lot earlier than that.
Okay. So from February 93 till about late March, early April?
Yes.
I may have misspoke. When did she show up at your house with the letters and the tapes?
In mid-March.
Mid-March?
Mid to late, it was the latter part of March, I know that.
There was a letter she wrote you, a long letter,
Yes.
and she gave you some videotapes, right?
Well, there were our tapes, and there was, she wanted me to look at them. She asked me to look at
I'm sorry, they were
Our tapes.
tapes, and she wanted me to look at them.
One was a wedding tape,
Yeah.
and the other one was children.
Wedding tape, a wedding tape that's never been sold, and a tape of our children.
What do you mean never been sold?
I never sold it, even though some people want to buy it, but they evidently got somebody else to okay them selling some tapes.
Your wedding tapes have been sold?
Yes.
Do you know who sold them?
Well, I know gave the okay.
Who?
The Browns. Let's take a break.
You're getting off the record. We are back on the record now, and the time is approximately 11:16.
Was there a particular event that sticks out in your mind when Nicole showed up at your house with the letters and the tapes?
Yes.
What was that?
The fact that she showed up, I hadn't seen her in a few months.
Between February of '93, when she started to send the cupcakes and the messages for the kids, and until this time she showed up, you were not in contact with her?
Not at all.
Not at all?
Not at all.
Did not call her?
Not
Did
at all.
not return messages back to her?
I personally didn't, no.
Assuming that there were messages from her.
You said, I think, last session of your deposition, or one of them, that she used to communicate messages with the kids.
Yes, or through Kathy Rand.
Kathy, that's right. By the time she showed up at your house in this occasion in March of '93, had you already met Paula?
Paula was my girlfriend.
Paula was your girlfriend, that's right. You
Yes.
met her in May of '92, correct?
Yes.
Okay. In fact, you know the day, don't you?
Roughly, yes.
What is it?
22nd of May. Well, I met her before the 22nd. I actually met her on like the 12th or 13th. The 22nd of May is when we dated.
And you
Roughly.
bought her the bracelet as a 2-year anniversary, 2 years later, right?
Well, for an anniversary date. We hadn't been together for 2 years, but
2-year anniversary date.
yes.
Okay. Now, when she showed up at your doorstep in March of '93, that was uninvited, I take it, right?
Yes.
And this first time you had seen her in a while.
Seen her, yes.
You spoken on the phone
Yes.
about getting back together?
No.
Just about the kids?
No, she had called me right before this
Oh, too.
to ask that she needed to talk to me.
And you said yes?
No.
What did you say?
I said if it wasn't about the kids, I didn't want to talk.
Why were you so adamant about this?
Because every time I talked to her I was just adamant. I didn't want to deal with her problems because generally when I talked to her, it was about her problems, and I didn't want to be involved in her problems.
What were her problems at that time?
We go back to her being pregnant. We went back to her having a problem with some boyfriend. We went back to Thanksgiving. She was having a hassle with her boyfriend and consequently didn't bring my kids to New York after we had agreed on it. Consequently, I had to get lawyers involved to get my kids for Christmas. Consequently, at the last minute, she wanted to come to New York. It was just, I just made a decision at one point that if we were going to communicate, it should have been about the kids, and outside of the kids, I didn't want any to deal with her.
When did you make that decision? In other words, what was sort of the last straw where you didn't want to communicate with her anymore except about the kids? Was it after Christmas of '93?
It wasn't the last straw, just after Christmas, after we had a great time together at Christmas, and she called me after Christmas. After Christmas. There was no specific incident. It was all of those incidences, and I just made up my mind after she left New York that I would only communicate with her when it came to the kids.
And that basically held true all of January '93, February '93, and part of March of '93.
Correct.
Let me back up for a second now. During the time before she showed up at your doorstep in mid-March of '93, had she ever, and after the two of you split up, did she ever come talk to you about problems with other men?
Yes.
Lean on your shoulder, so to speak, ask for advice? Those kind of
Advice.
things?
Yes.
And about what men did she come talk to you?
Twice about Joseph and the pregnancy.
And what were the 2 times about Joseph? Tell me about those incidents.
The first, I think she was informing me that she had met a guy that, I quote, she was crazy about. Evidently, she had just spent time in Mexico with him. But she didn't know. She didn't know if he had really split up with his girlfriend. And so she was, it was her, it was her first time, I guess, since '77, that she was getting into a real relationship with a person other than me. And she just, I don't think she totally believed that he had split up with his girlfriend or something, and she just was talking to me about it.
And what was the other occasion?
I gather at some point in time, someone had told her that I was somewhere and Joseph was with another girl, and that I was at this place. And she came over to talk to me about that. Well, she didn't come over. We actually went to dinner, I think, and talked about that. It was in the summer, or early June, mid-June, maybe.
We're into 1992 now, right?
Yeah, we're in the summer of '92.
So during this time period, you and she were split up, not together as a couple, but had a healthy relationship?
Yes.
And that lasted until things deteriorated in November of '92 over this Thanksgiving incident?
Yes, it was very good right up until when she didn't bring the kids back for Thanksgiving and gave me no reason why.
Did you ever talk to her about that?
I asked her why.
And what did she say?
She said she just didn't feel like it.
Did she tell you why?
No. She told me why eventually, once we were back together a year or so later. But,
What did she say then?
She was having beef with her, I guess her and her boyfriend. And whenever she talked to me, I was short. And she just said she just didn't feel like flying to New York. And she just didn't feel like flying to New York. That was that.
Who was her boyfriend then?
I believe it was Brett.
Brett.
Yeah.
Did you have a healthy relationship with her from the moment the two of you decided to split up in early 1992 until this point in Thanksgiving time?
Healthy, I would say. I went through a tough time. I didn't want to split up. So for me, it wasn't healthy for me.
But initially you didn't want to split up, but then eventually you reckoned with it, right?
When she told me that she was crazy about another guy, there was no reason for me to try to stay in it.
Now, when was that conversation?
That was the night, I believe, we keep getting to Mother's Day, but it was roughly Mother's Day or the day after. I believe it was the day after Mother's Day in '92. I was at the Brown's house and Nicole showed up real late from Mexico.
Who did she say she was crazy about?
Joseph.
Joseph. So you said on your video that you and Nicole had lunch on January 6, 1992, where Nicole told you that she wanted to split up.
Yes.
Okay. And from that point on until this conversation in Mother's Day of 1992, you were of the frame of mind of wanting to put the relationship back together, right?
Well, I mean, yes, I was thrown off. Basically, yes, there was one incident that may have changed. So
What was that incident?
the Keith Zalmowitz.
That was before Mother's Day of '92?
Yes.
And was that shortly before?
A few weeks, I would say.
After the Keith Zlomsowicz incident, did you still want to put the relationship back on track?
It's hard to say. I just know when she told me she met this guy she was crazy about, but she didn't know that it was that day that, in my mind, I moved on.
Emotionally, right?
Yes.
And as of Mother's Day of '92, you had not yet met Paula, right?
Correct.
The Zlomsowicz incident, was that the first major setback in your plans to try to win her over again?
Well, he didn't say he had plans to win her over. He
Well,
said
your
no.
desire to reconcile with her. Was the Zlomsowicz incident like the first major setback for you?
No, when she moved out, there was a major setback.
Well,
for
I
me.
understand, but you were trying to pursue her and get the relationship back on track.
Yeah. I don't know. It's hard to say. I just know that I accepted it. It was over when she came and spoke to me about Keith. At that point in time, I emotionally left. And
Keith or Brent? Who?
No, not
Joseph.
Brent.
Joseph. I'm sorry.
Joseph. At that point, I moved on. I started.
Okay.
I was ready to find somebody.
The two of you have cordial and positive relations between January 6, 1992 and the Mother's Day of '92 incident?
Yes.
And continued again through the rest of that year.
Yes.
Then Thanksgiving, things went downhill.
Well, I can't say it went downhill. No, I just say at that point in Thanksgiving, lawyers got involved for me to get the kids for Christmas, and we actually had a very, very good 3 or 4 days at Christmas, a real good.
Did you communicate with her between Thanksgiving and Christmas, 1992?
Very little. Almost, if I communicated with her, it had to do with arranging for the kids, after the lawyers had got involved, which day the kids would come back, who would bring them back, because she wasn't coming back.
Were you romantically involved with Nicole at all during the year 1992?
We had one night, we had a couple of nights. One night, she came to my house, and then one night after we had gone to Mezzaluna.
The answer to that is yes or
yes,
no.
I'm sorry, yes.
How many?
I'm not sure of this, but I mean, kissing and stuff, I would say twice.
Were any of them after the Mother's Day 92?
No, no.
Both before?
Yes.
Were they both before the Zlomsowicz incident?
Yes, yes.
So between January and the Zlomsowicz incident of 92
Yes.
is when you had relations with Nicole in 92?
Yes.
And thereafter, for the remainder of that year, did not, right?
Correct.
And when, for the first time, did you have relations with her in 1993?
I would say beginning of April. She showed up at my house one night.
Okay. So I'll get back to that. In April of 1993, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, she spent some time with you in Christmas, and it went well, you said, right?
Yes.
That's Christmas 92. That's in New York?
Yes.
And you were with Paula then, right?
Yes.
Was Paula with you and Nicole at the same time?
No.
Was Paula part of the 4 days that you spent with Nicole?
No.
And was there any friction between Paul and you over that?
A little bit.
Now, had you made any plans to marry Paula?
No.
You ever proposed to her?
No.
You and she ever discussed marriage
Marriage, no.
and getting engaged?
No.
Having a family, living together?
Kids, yes.
And you discussed this in the year 1992 and up through some point in 93, I take it?
I don't know if it ever came up in 92 or in 93. I'm sorry, ask the question again.
You know, when did it come up?
It was never a plan. Paula is as she stated, Paula's always wanted a family. She wanted the white picket fence.
She wanted to get married to you and have a family, right?
She never told me she wanted to get married to
Well,
me.
she wanted to have a family with you, right?
She never told me that, ever. She always just said that her dream was always this house with the white picket fence and kids.
But you understood that she would have liked to have that with you, right?
Well, the longer we were together, I would have assumed that eventually I was,
Are you saying the two of you never talked about that?
Never talked about that, no.
Never once talked about having kids together?
Yes, we talked about having kids and filling houses up with kids, yes.
Did you?
But it
Yeah,
was at an affair. We talked about that.
it was at an affair.
Yes.
Was that the evening of June 11,
Yes.
1994, right?
Yes.
Now, before that evening, had you ever spoken to Paul about that?
Us having kids?
Yeah.
I don't really think so. Paula just wants to have kids. She wants to have a simple life and kids and a house and family.
When Nicole showed up on your doorstep in March of 1993, what was the state of your relationship with Paula?
Great.
You had a monogamous relationship with her?
Yes.
And were the two of you living together at any time?
No.
Did she stay with you often?
If she visited me in New York for a few days, she has a very active career, so she was traveling as much as I was.
Now, from mid-March of when Nicole came to see you in March of 93, what was the reason she told you she wanted to get back together?
I'm sorry.
When Nicole came to see you in mid-March of 93.
After she saw me.
When she came to see you to talk to you,
Okay.
what was the reason she said that she wanted to get back together?
She told me, you know, I love you. I've never said I didn't love you. I needed to do the things that I did this year. She didn't like her life. She didn't like the people she was hanging around with. She, quote, all the guys are just trying to get in your pants. All the girls I run around with, they're just looking for somebody with money to marry. Everybody's doing drugs. And I said to myself, I had a good life, I had a good family, and I want to come home. She went on to discuss that evidently she had been going to some therapy, and they had taught her something, and she asked me if I had read a letter that the kids had gave me, which I hadn't. And it was curious because she says in the letter she wished we were taking a walk, and I was taking a walk with her at the time.
Why hadn't you read that letter the kids gave you?
Because they just walked in with it and handed it to me, and then I went looking for where they went, and then I noticed Nicole was parked across my driveway, and
Did she tell you that she regretted the decision to split up with you?
No, she said she didn't regret that. She needed the time that she had.
Did she talk to you at all about abuse by you?
No,
Did that come up at all in this
I don't
conversation?
recall that coming up at all.
What about infidelity?
In this conversation, her sole purpose was to get back with me.
What did you say? Oh, by the way, what people did she say she did not like?
She didn't say. She said her friend. I didn't know who her friends were. I knew Cora, but all these other people who we see now, I didn't know who these people were.
What do you mean by these other people, Mr. Simpson?
The Keiths, the CCs, these people. I don't know these people.
Cece was not someone who was in your and Nicole's life before you split up?
No.
Was Cora?
Cora, yes.
She was, right?
Yes.
But not Cece, right?
Not Cece.
And not Faye Resnick?
Oh, no, not Faye Resnick.
And what about Kris Kardashian or Kris Jenner?
We knew Kris Kardashian. I know Kris. They were friends because of Bob and I were friends. They never did anything outside of Bob and I. Nicole wasn't a big fan of all the fingernails and hair and clothes thing, and that was Chris's thing.
And what about the Schulmans? Were they part of your circle of friends before you and Nicole split up?
At one point, then Nicole had a falling out with the Schulmans, and I believe by the time we split out, Nicole hadn't spoken a word to Linda in a few years, even though I would see them from time to time.
And what about the LeBarons?
We saw them maybe once a year.
And when you and Nicole split up in '92, who was in your circle of friends, your closest friends?
I would say for Nicole was Cora. I don't think she saw much of Susie Keogh, who has been her closest friend most of the years we were together up to that time. The Schwartzes.
Alan Schwartz.
Yeah, and Pam Schwartz. And then Nicole's life was more geared around the kids, you know?
Those are the main people, though.
Yes, I would say they were main people.
When you took vacations with these people?
We had in the past, but yeah, we had in the past.
Okay. Oh, and what did you tell Nicole?
Not Cora. We hadn't taken vacations with Cora, though.
And what did you tell Nicole in March of '93 when she said she wanted to go back?
I told her I was in a relationship, and but essentially I felt that I loved her, and I always would love her, but I was in a relationship, and that I had suggested, I was big on us doing something together as a family once a week, and we had, since I had been back, we hadn't done that. And I said, but I do believe we should, at least once a week, do something together with the kids.
And did she accept that?
She had no choice.
And did you carry out on that plan?
Well, what happened?
That's a
yes,
yes or no?
yes.
What happened?
What do you mean?
You said, well, what happened?
Well, yes, we did carry out on that plan, but Nicole didn't accept that plan, and Nicole just started showing up everywhere.
Against your wishes, you mean?
When you say against my wishes, I mean...
Was it bothering you?
To an extent, yes, but not, I mean, it was wasn't unpleasant, but it got complicated.
How?
Because I'd be places and be meeting Paula places, or Paula would come to a golf course and was going to meet me for drinks or something, and Nicole would show up before Paula showed up.
Uninvited?
Well, she was going to the driving range.
It was your sense that she was going there because you were there?
Well, she told me that. She said if we got back together, and I'm crazy about golf, she wanted to learn how to play golf, so she started taking golf lessons.
But are you saying it was a coincidence that she showed up at these places when you were there, or she was trying to meet up with you there?
That calls for speculation.
No. What was your understanding of what was happening?
Well, how could he have an understanding unless she
Because
told him?
he can observe human nature.
Well, she knew what time I played golf, and when I was coming off, coincidentally, when I was coming off the 18th green, the marshal would say, "Your wife." I said, "My wife? I don't have a wife." "Your ex-wife is on the driving range." And I'd go down.
Did she show up at any other places where you were besides the golf course?
My house.
Again, uninvited.
Yes, but that was nothing because, well, I can't say that was nothing. Quite often was either the kids were at my house, or she was coming by to drop something off for the kids, or she was dropping the kids off, and then it got to be a little more than that.
When did that happen?
After we went to Cabo.
And how did it get to be a little more than that?
Well, she started coming late at night.
Without your asking her to?
Yes.
And while you had Paula there with you?
No, Paula. Well, a few times. I just assumed that when she didn't see Paula's car, she wouldn't ring the bell. But if she saw Paula's car, she, I mean, you know, it depends if she knew I was home or
Did
what.
she have a key?
At that time, no.
Is the Ashford bell?
Yes.
You went to Cabo with her in April of '93,
Yes.
and the two of you went as a couple.
Yes.
Who'd you go with?
Just her and I.
And was you were romantically involved during that trip?
In that trip, yes.
Yeah. And did your plans for the future change during that trip?
I hadn't made up my mind one way or the other.
You were still kind of on this once a week family event?
Well, yeah, that was still what I wanted it to be, but at this time, that wasn't what was happening.
Okay. And after Cabo, Nicole started showing up more and more often?
Yes.
Okay. And did she at some point show up in Mexico?
Yes.
When was that, after the Cabo trip?
Yes, that was in May.
And who did you go with to Cabo, to Mexico with?
Alan and Gail Austin, Craig and Melissa Baumgarten, I believe Bob Hoskins went with us, and Corey Woolman.
Where'd you stay?
At a friend's house.
In Cabo?
Yes.
And Nicole showed up at this house?
Well, she called. When I called to leave a number where I would be, she said, "We're coming." I said,
Who's
"What do
we?
you mean we're coming?" And she said, "Her and her friend and the kids." And I said, "Well, where are you staying?" She said, "At a friend's ex-husband had a co-op," which I've read now is a villa, but that's where they were staying.
His friend was Faye Resnick?
Yes,
So that, she showed up with Faye Resnick
yes,
and Justin and Sydney?
yes.
And Faye's child?
Yes, yes.
What's her name?
I can't recall her name right now.
Francesca.
Francesca.
And did you and Nicole see each other during this trip?
Yes, I would after golf, I'd drive into town, and yes, the answer is yes.
When she said she wanted to come down, did you resist that at all?
She didn't say she wanted to come down. She said they were going down.
Did you try to talk her out of it?
No.
Okay. And after Cabo, you came back and she started showing up a lot at your house. Any other places too?
No, after Cabo, I came back and
Is this his Cabo of May or Cabo of April? This the second Cabo trip?
Good question, Mr. Baker. I think this is this is after the
I'm
first.
so overwhelmed. So overwhelmed. I can't.
This is the first Cabo trip in April of '93.
okay, the first Cabo trip.
You said that from that point on, she started coming over unannounced to your house quite a bit.
Yeah, more regularly.
more
yeah.
regularly?
Yeah.
And did she show up at any other places during that time period other than the golf course?
Show up.
Yeah.
She came to my office a few times.
Were you telling her not to do these things?
No.
In other words, you never said, look, Nicole, you're coming around too often. Please don't do this.
No. No.
So it was not bothering you at all, right?
It was uncomfortable, but no, I like my kids, and I've always liked Nicole.
So even though it was uncomfortable, you didn't tell her you were uncomfortable about it?
No.
Okay.
No.
And at some point, you then decided to have this reconciliation with her, right?
Yes.
And that occurred after the second Cabo trip in May of '93?
Actually, doing that second Cabo trip. Actually, it was during the Cabo trip that I made up my mind that I would give it a shot.
Was there anything in particular that caused you to make that decision?
I really, after my friends left, Nicole and the kids, Justin kept saying, sitting there, Justin, come on, stay, Dad, stay. And I stayed, and I just really enjoyed myself with my family.
Was Faye still there?
Yeah.
So during that trip, you and she made the agreement that you've previously testified about, right?
Yeah, I think I came to the conclusion then. I don't know if I worded it to her then. I may have right after I came back, but it was at that point in my mind that I said I was going to give this a shot.
And your relationship with Paula was good at that time?
Yes.
Not on the way down?
I think in the previous month, because Paula came by, I know, and Nicole was there. That's when she met Nicole. And I didn't even know Nicole was there. I was upstairs. And then I would tell Paula I was having dinner with Nicole and the kids, and it became some friction. But the relationship was still good, but it was friction. There was some friction.
Over Nicole?
Yeah, I think over I can't recall. It just seemed that sometimes there was a couple of conflicts time-wise where Paula wanted to do something, but I told the kids I'd do something. And then Nicole would end up with me and the kids doing something. And,
It's fair to say, though, that the conflicts that you had with Paula during this time period stemmed from her fear that you might get back together with Nicole?
you'd have to ask her that. But
you and she discussed that,
yeah,
right?
I think it had to do with, but I don't think I ever discussed with her about getting back to Nicole until after I made up my mind, and then I discussed it with her.
But
then
before-
we talked about it.
Before that time, though, you and Paula had discussions of where she was unhappy about Nicole being in your life. Is that a fair statement?
I don't recall it specifically having a conversation about Nicole being in my life. I do know that it was uncomfortable, and Paula wasn't happy when Nicole was coming around a lot.
Okay. And how did Paula take it when you told her?
You know, Paula's got a lot of pride. I'm sure she was hurt. She didn't show that hurt at that time. She was very supportive of me verbally about getting my family back together. I think she was very skeptical that it would work. But it was painful to do it, but I think she was supportive but hurt, and so was I.
And where was this when you told her?
I believe we were at her house, and I think we went to Le Dome for lunch, and it was right around then.
May '93?
May '93, I believe it was. Yeah.
Now, from that point on, you saw her only one time?
I think I saw her twice.
Twice?
Yeah, I think I ran into her one other time. Yeah.
Until you got back together with her in
Yeah. Yeah.
May of '94, right?
Yes.
So you only saw her twice in that ensuing year, correct?
Yes.
And not romantically involved with her at all?
No.
Okay. And didn't speak to her on the phone?
I may have spoke to her a few times on the phone, because I know a few times I would call Kathy and Paula be on the phone. I know a few times I would run into someone who lived in Panama City, and I'd call her mother, and I believe on one of those occasions she was there. or was coming the next day, and I called the next day to talk to her. But if it was 3 or 4 times in that year, it would have been the most. Paula called, I know, the day Marcus was getting married. You know.
She write to you?
No.
And you to her?
No.
When you were in New York during the August football season, 1993, did you see Paula?
No.
Why did Paula tell you why she was skeptical that your reconciliation would work?
I don't know. I don't think she explained it. I think she was more of an attitude than she said it, but I was skeptical. so it was...
He didn't ask you if you were skeptical.
Okay. No, she didn't. I can't recall any specific thing. I think it was just more an attitude.
Did you decide to get back together with Nicole essentially for the kids?
I mean, that'd be the easy thing, but I don't think so. I think I didn't know how I felt about Nicole. I truly didn't know how I felt about Nicole. I knew that when we split, I was in love with her, and I knew I would have never left her at that point in our relationship. And I was, you know, I had to try to understand how I felt. And the kids obviously was in the mix, but I think it was about myself first.
Now, over the next year, you saw Nicole on a monogamous basis, right?
Yes.
And then split up with her the day after Mother's Day of 1994, is that right?
We've been through all of this ad nauseum.
Well, let me see. I got to back up here a little bit. For the next year, I saw Nicole. We didn't date other people. I never asked her what she did. She never asked me what I did.
Okay.
It was we were working on getting our relationship back together.
What I want to know is during that next year, from May of 93 to May 94, how many times did you break apart, split up, call it off, and then get back together again?
There were 2 occasions that I was dead set on ending it, but it never happened.
And those 2 were when?
The argument that's now the infamous 911 call.
October 25, 93.
Yeah, and there was one other occasion. I believe there was one other occasion.
When was that?
It was early on. It was early on. It was in 93.
Early in the reconciliation period,
Well,
right?
relatively early. It was in 93, I know that.
What happened?
Something was in the National Enquirer, and then I was out with Nicole, and I believe Faye and Christian, and it was all in the same kind of period of time. They were comparing notes about maybe Joseph or something, and I just, you know, I was kind of missing Paula, and I just didn't feel, I didn't feel I was in love with Nicole. And I just didn't like what was going on.
Was this at the California Sushi?
That was the dinner that they were discussing this guy Joseph.
And
I believe it was Joseph. I may be wrong there. I guess whatever the guy they were discussing, they both had this guy, and there was, I didn't know what she was accustomed to hanging around, but I was in shock that in front of me they would be having this conversation.
Did you start arguing with her at the
No,
table?
I said I left. I didn't argue at the table at all.
Was it a table?
I believe we left the sushi bar and went to a table, yes.
And no argument with her? Got up and left?
I got up and said, I can't believe, I don't know who the hell you think I am. I either asked Chris to pay the bill or gave him some money, and I walked out.
That's all that happened from your account of that, is that right?
Inside, they came out and was trying to talk me into, you know, coming back in and stuff, but I was leaving.
Did you have any argument with her outside?
About coming back in, and I said I wasn't coming. I said, I can't believe, who the hell you think I am? You know, you guys could be talking about this. I don't know what your other boyfriends did, but, you know, you got me confused with somebody.
So you saying that in a loud, angry voice outside?
I don't know. I'm loud all the time, man. So when you tell me a loud, angry voice, I think it's the way I talk.
Did you observe whether other people were hearing what you were saying?
I don't believe so, no. No, there was no crowd around. It was just the four of us. I think a police car drove by at one point.
Were you drinking that evening?
Yes.
Were you drunk?
No.
Now, what upset you at the table?
Other than what he just told you about?
Well, you said something they were talking about Joseph.
You
I
just went
think it
through all
was
that.
Joseph. Yes. It was
Well, what
some guy they both
specifically-
had screwed.
Why would her talking about Joseph upset you?
Well, I think if your wife and a girlfriend was talking about some guy that both of them screwed, you'd get up and leave. If you don't, I
Or were
think
they
you're a chump.
talking about having sex with Joseph?
Well, whatever the guy was. I believe it was Joseph. They both had screwed this guy, and they were talking about sex with this guy.
Well, that's what I'm asking you. Did they just mention the name Joseph, or were they talking about sex with Joseph?
They were talking about sex with a guy. I'm assuming it was Joseph. I don't have any clear recollection it was Joseph, but it was a guy that they both had had. And when they were kind of comparing notes about it,
In your presence?
I was in shock.
When Nicole and Faye were doing this, right?
Yes.
And were they doing it just talking to one another, not to you and
Well,
Christian?
the four of us were sitting at a table, the four of us, and this is a conversation that was going on, and I looked at Christian, and he kind of did something, and
Did you use profanity at Nicole in the restaurant before you got up?
No, I don't think I said anything except I said, well, I may have said, you know, who the hell you think I am? You have this conversation in front of me.
Did you
I'm
read
outta
Faye
here.
Resnick's account of this incident in her book?
I may have. Yeah, I did read her book.
Yeah, I know you did. She said that you were screaming and yelling and using profanity at the table. Is that true?
I don't believe so, no.
And she said you followed her down to the ladies' room.
No, that's wrong.
She said you barged into the ladies' room, kicking the door open, going inside.
That's wrong.
Said you made a big scene in front of the patrons and the restaurant manager.
That's, she said that, yes.
Yeah, is that true?
No.
You drove home separately from Nicole that evening?
Yes.
And did Nicole get driven to Rockingham? Oh, Nicole was at Gretna Green then,
Yes.
and you went back to Rockingham.
Yes.
Okay. Now, after that incident, did you and Nicole not see each other for a while?
No. We saw each other almost immediately.
Okay. In both those incidents,
Both those incidents? What was
you-
that?
The 1025.
1025 and this California sushi bar incident, was it Nicole who, after those incidents occurred, came to you and sort of apologized and wanted to put things back together again?
Most certainly at the sushi bar. I think it was a joint thing at the other one. I think I think we both apologized to each other at the second one, and I was I may apologize for being loud, but certainly not apologize for the content.
Loud at what incident?
93.
The sushi bar incident.
No, the 911 is.
You apologize for being loud.
Yeah, it was an argument. It was but I don't apologize for why I was arguing. You know.
Okay. Did you also have an incident involving Nicole at the Harley Davidson Cafe opening in October of '93 in New York City?
No.
You attended that with Christian Reichart and Faye Resnick?
Yes.
And shortly before that event, an article appeared in the National Enquirer about you and Nicole.
I don't believe so.
Any tabloid article come out around that period of time that upset you at all?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, did you have any disagreement with Nicole either that evening or the next evening at your place in New York?
I think the next evening, Nicole was upset that a friend of mine and Faye were on the phone late that night. And
Is that Mark Packer?
Mark Packer, yes.
Who was on the phone with Mark? You
Faye.
and she was upset with you?
Yes, yes. And I kept saying, she's your friend. Why are you pissed at me? Because he's your friend. So what does that got to do with us?
So did the two of you have a loud argument that evening?
It wasn't loud because she went to bed immediately. She said something. I said, well, so why are you pissed at me about this? That's your friend you brought back here. I didn't bring her back here. She talks to who she wants to talk to.
Was that the extent of the evening?
Yes.
Of the incident, I mean.
Yes, we were home, and it was like she had just warmed up some pasta for me, and then.
Now, you did attend the opening of the Harley Davidson
Yes.
Cafe, right?
Yes.
And you were at a table with Resnick, Christian, and Nicole?
I don't know if we ever got a table where we may have at one point sat down. The place was like sardines. It
Okay.
was so packed.
And did you consume cocaine that evening?
No.
Did you take cocaine in front of Nicole, Faye,
No.
or Christian?
Absolutely not.
Did any of them take cocaine?
I didn't observe anybody taking cocaine.
And what about at your apartment that evening or the next evening? Did
Absolutely
you take
not.
cocaine there?
Absolutely not.
So, okay. Was there an incident in which you had a disagreement or a fight with Nicole at a restaurant called Toscana's?
No.
Do you recall that incident as described in Faye Resnick's book?
Yes.
Were you present there?
Yes.
Present there when?
At,
The incident.
incident
the
was
incident.
described?
Yes.
yeah. What's your recollection of the incident?
Well, he doesn't
I don't
even...
think there was an incident. I saw her book. I was surprised at it. But, I mean, you read Discovery. You see what everybody else there said. Jeez.
So what she said about that is false?
Yes.
Ms. Resnick also wrote in her book and testified under oath that you called her on May 2 or May 3 of 1994 from Puerto Rico, or from, no, withdrawn. Ms. Resnick testified under oath that you called her on May 2 or May 3, a telephone call with her. Do you recall that?
No, not particularly, no.
She said that in this call, you were ranting and raving about Nicole, having made a decision to leave you while you were in Puerto Rico. You recall discussing that with Faye Resnick?
No.
And in this conversation, you told Faye that you would kill Nicole. Do you recall saying that?
Absolutely not.
Recall having any conversation with Faye Resnick about killing Nicole, even if you didn't mean it seriously?
None. Absolutely none. Ever.
You ever discuss that with Christian Reichardt?
Never.
Did you ever discuss Faye's account of that with Christian Reichardt?
Account of what?
Account of that conversation that I just described to you.
What conversation? It
Were
was
you-
never a conversation. So it was never a conversation. I know
You answered the question.
No. I don't know. I don't know. I've talked about a few things with Christian, but I don't recall that being any point thing.
Did you and Faye have a conversation on the telephone around May 2 or May 3 when you were very angry about Nicole and told so to Faye?
Now, this is 94.
Excuse me, did I say 93?
You didn't say any year.
94.
I don't know about angry. I was concerned about what the heck was going on with Nicole, which I know I expressed to Faye and I expressed to the Browns.
And are you saying that you think you had a telephone conversation with Faye Resnick around this time when you expressed that to her as well?
I'm pretty sure if I spoke to Faye during this period of time, I would have expressed that, yes.
No, this is before you made the decision to leave Nicole for the last time, right?
Well, when I came back from Puerto Rico, I had made that decision, but Nicole and I had a conversation, and it went for another week.